And from there, it kind of inspired me to do more and more, and now I'm here.
Great. I think I asked because one of the themes is activism, and that's sort of part of Occupy London as well. And it's great because one of the reasons why I asked you is it's pretty important for Sisters of Frida is how can we help young disabled women like yourselves, so how we can help women like yourselves to show you the way or to learn with you, etc. It is often said that we were both at Feminism in London last week, and we both remarked on the fact that there weren't very many visible disabled women there. I know, and I can see Angela is here. She was at Feminism in London too. Thank you, Angela, for being here. So we were both saying that feminists haven't really included disabled women or women of color in their discussions. What would you have liked as sort of support from other feminists? You know, from your experience there, because we went to different sessions after that.
Well, I chaired a session at Feminism in London, and one of the women there said something that really struck me. She was like, before I met you, I never had any idea that there were black people with disabilities, because you only kind of saw white people with disabilities. And I was like, well, that's an interesting sentiment, thank you. And I would just like for feminists to acknowledge the fact that there are people with disabilities that are also women, that are also feminists. We're not just kind of there in our own little bubble and we're excluded from feminism, because that's counterproductive.
I can't believe she said that. But that is great. Sisters of Frida was set up because we felt disabled women were left out of the whole conversation of feminism. So how should you think, I mean, this might be a tough question and that might, go on forever, but how should you think an intersectional network, that kind of intersectional network that we've been sort of discussing, would work, you think? What support could it give you, or what support would you like from it, or what could you do with it?
I think to have an intersectional network, you have to first acknowledge the fact that there are women with disabilities that are sentient human beings. Having a physical disability doesn't dull your intellect, and even having a mental disability doesn't mean you can't have your own opinions. And before intersectionality can happen, this has to happen. And I think an important thing for intersectionality is showing young women with disabilities that just because you have a disability doesn't mean you're a freak. I only have one other friend my age who has a disability, and she tends not to acknowledge it. Not that she's ashamed of it, but I guess she just doesn't want it to be something that is shared with other people. And I think that's a serious problem, because if people don't want to be open with their disabilities, how can you meet people who have disabilities?
I think that's perfectly fair. When I was your age, I was in total denial. I just thought that, I just need to work harder, I just need to get on, and I'd be okay, So the last thing, the last question here before we go on to Ruth is, well, I should say that we started with Becky because it seems good to start with somebody who is just starting on her journey towards sort of intersectionality and feminism and disability activism, and then going to Ruth, who's been there for quite a long time and been there, done that, got the T-shirt. So this next question is a bit more sort of focus on something else. Is that disabled women are said to be twice or even 3 times more likely to encounter domestic or sexual violence. And one young Sister of Frida said she was doing workshops I think it was in Strasbourg, with young disabled women, that some were not even aware that they have been inappropriately touched because of their impairment disability. How do we get awareness to disabled women so that they can, first of all, be aware, to complain about it? Where should they go? How do we even start? Because violence against women, domestic violence, is very much in the news at the moment. But I think disabled women don't seem to be mentioned.
Often in my sociology lessons at school, we've been looking at gender and crime, and we hear all these statistics about how 1 in 6 women experience domestic violence every year, and 1 in 10 has experienced in her life, and a certain number of women of colour have experienced domestic violence, but there is never anything about women with disabilities. So it kind of comes across as that women with disabilities aren't able to be domestically abused or sexually abused, and this is a total myth, and I think that needs to be dispelled so that you can teach people what someone is doing to you is wrong, and it's not just something that you should expect because you have a disability.
Fantastic. Thank you, Becky. Is there anything you want to ask, talk and start that I probably left out?
I'd just like to say that this is my first time being in a room with so many disabled people. Woo!
Thank you. I think before we get questions, we should ask Ruth the same questions, and then you could not too bad. Okay. Now,